VDA loan operator on the edge of known space receives a message that changes everything. Lisa Martinez stares at the screen, her hands trembling as the words scroll by. We do not know what happens after that. The Zephyrians, humanity's oldest allies, are under attack, and their plea for help echoes across the void. But Earth hasn't forgotten what they did for us during the Void Hunter crisis. Now the question isn't whether we'll answer. It's how far we're willing to go. Lisa Martinez's fingers hovered over the console as the distress signal repeated. The words scrolled in sharp, clinical letters against the dark screen. No voice, no hollow, just cold text. That was the first warning. The Zephyrians weren't wasting bandwidth on niceties. The message was 8 lines long. The first 4 listed coordinates, timestamps, fleet compositions. The 5th line read, defensive arrays at 12%. The 6th, civilian casualties estimated at 67%. The 7th, we do not know what happens after that. She had seen combat reports before. She had never seen a Zephyrian admit they didn't know something. Martinez knew the encryption protocols by heart. She ran the verification 3 times. No spoofing, no false flag. This was real. She waited for her hands to stop shaking before opening a channel to command. The warning lights on her panel pulsed red, not the amber of drills, not the blue of routine hails. This was the first live Priority 1 alert in her 5 years stationed at Relay 9. The hegemony had broken through. The Zephyrian blockade. Their fleet was burning toward the inner colonies. Standard doctrine said Relay 9 should shut down and go dark. Standard doctrine didn't account for what the Zephyrians had done for Earth. 23 years ago, when the Void Hunters had breached Luna's orbital defenses, it was the Zephyrians who arrived first. Not the Cressian Collective with their dreadnoughts, not the Vesper Conquered with their trade envoys. A single Zephyrian medical frigate, unarmed, had jumped into the Sol system and deployed atmospheric scrubbers across 6 cities. Their envoys had handed over schematics for neural stabilization tech that saved 500,000 lives. Humanity had never officially repaid that debt. Everyone in command knew it. Admiral Sullivan took the call in his private office. No aides, no hollow projections, just a direct feed to Martinez's station. He listened without interruption. The only movement was the slow tightening of his jaw. Verification? Triple-checked, sir, it's them. Signal strength? We're the closest relay. Their bleeding transmission power. Estimate 6 more minutes before they lose the ability to send at all. Sullivan turned to someone off-screen. A quiet voice gave numbers, distances, fleet readiness stats. He didn't react. Sir, the hegemony's running a harvesting operation. They're taking people. I know what they do. Silence. The relay hissed static. Martinez watched the Admiral's face. She had seen that expression once before, on an old colonel who'd ordered a bunker sealed with his own men still inside. Sullivan reached for another console. Open a fleet-wide channel. All ships. All frequencies. The order that followed wasn't in any training manual. No contingency plans accounted for it. Code Black protocols are now in effect. All vessels are to disregard standing deployment orders and converge on these coordinates. A pause. Recall all personnel from leave. Reactivate the Luna Arsenal under Protocol 7. Martinez heard someone inhale sharply off-screen. No one used Protocol 7. Not after series. Sullivan kept talking. Inform the Cressians we're invoking Article 14 of the Mutual Defense Accord. Tell them we expect support within 72 hours, and sir, the Cressians don't honor. I know what they honor. Send it. The comms officer started speaking again. Sullivan cut him off. One more thing. Patch this through to all civilian networks. Full disclosure, no edits. A moment later, every public feed on Earth and the colonies lit up with the same message. The Zephyrian distress call. The word harvesting circled in red. Martinez watched the reply window on her terminal. Ships were already acknowledging, not the crisp confirmations of routine ops, but terse, grim responses. Acknowledged. En route. Standing by. Earth had debated for decades whether it would ever fight for another species again. The debate was over. Sullivan turned back to Martinez. His voice was quieter now, the way officers spoke when giving an order they knew might get someone killed. Keep that channel open as long as you can. The relay's main display flickered. The Zephyrian signal was degrading. Yes, sir. Module 9. This is Fleetcom Actual. Begin transmission. Martinez didn't ask what he wanted to send. She already knew. Every human in the system knew. It was the same 3 words they'd once heard crackling over dying speakers when a Zephyrian medic had dragged a wounded Marine from a collapsed bunker. Sullivan said them clearly. No dramatics, no hesitation. We are coming. The channel hissed. Then the lights on her console turned green. Signal locked, Admiral. They heard you. Wren moved deeper into the bunker. The final chamber opened with a hiss, revealing rows of neural scramblers. These didn't look like weapons at all. Just smooth ovoids resembling river stones. The first tech to touch one recoiled. Cold, he muttered. Wren checked the readings. Not cold. The devices were absorbing ambient heat, preparing for activation. Each scrambler could flood a ship's crew with raw, unfiltered terror, the kind that didn't fade when the device shut off. Prep them for transport, Wren said. Priority 1 loading sequence. Across the facility, other teams found worse things. Consciousness disruptors, black spikes that unraveled neural patterns, molecular decohesion arrays, technology designed to vibrate metal until it powdered, weapons meant to break fleets and minds, not just hulls. Wren opened a channel to Earth Command. Arsenal is operational. First shipment launches in 20 minutes. Sullivan's voice crackled back. Define operational. We can field 2/3 of the inventory immediately. The remainder needs recalibration. Time frame? 6 hours for full deployment. The line hissed. Then Sullivan said, cut it to 4. Wren glanced at the readouts. That would mean bypassing half the safety checks. Understood. The facility rumbled as the first transport lifted from its pad. Wren watched through the observation port as the ship vanished into the black. Earth's fleets would have their toys soon. Out in the warrens of the arsenal, whispers started. Technicians spoke about the things they unpacked. Devices not on any official manifest. Objects that reacted to human presence. Devices that didn't belong to any known branch of Earth tech. Wren silenced the talk with a glare. Stay on mission. But he saw the way his team moved now, carefully as if the next locker might contain something they couldn't handle. In the deepest vault, a single chamber remained sealed. The door bore no markings. No manifest included it. When Wren asked the AI core about it, the system replied with a flat error tone. He let it be. Some locks existed for a reason. The second transport launched, then the third. 14 disruptors, 9 temporal mines, 30 scramblers, enough to fracture a fleet, and leave survivors begging for death. Wren's comm buzzed. One of the transport pilots, voice tight with nerves. Lieutenant, what exactly are we shipping here? You have your orders. Yeah, I do. But the crate in Bay 4 is humming, like singing, and the scanners show 0 power draw from it. Wren, check the logs. Bay 4 contained a molecular decohesion array. It shouldn't make noise. He toggled the bay's cameras. The crate sat silent and still. Report any anomalies, he told the pilot. Otherwise, proceed. Copy that. The link cut. Outside, another ship departed. The arsenal's lights pulsed in time with the launches. Red for danger, violet for readiness, black for the moments between. Wren reviewed the deployment schedule. 37 vessels would carry weapons to the front. 37 chances for something to go wrong. His console chimed. An alert from the AI core. Unauthorized access attempt. Deep storage. The same unmarked vault. Wren grabbed 2 Marines and headed for the elevator. The car dropped fast enough to make his ears pop. When the doors opened, the corridor was empty. The vault door stood intact. No forced entry, no tampering. But the biometric scanner registered 1 failed attempt, an ident code that shouldn't exist. Wren checked the logs. The scanner showed 1 result. Void Hunter, Type Chunk 6. His blood froze. Run diagnostic, he ordered. Full system purge. The Marines tightened their grips on their rifles. They knew what a Type 6 was. Everyone did. The scan completed. No traces, no malware. Just that single entry in the logs, already fading. Ren exhaled. Secure the perimeter. No one comes down here without my direct authorization. He took the elevator back to the surface. The arsenal felt different now. Not just a weapons dump, but a place that remembered things Earth wanted forgotten. A fresh alert popped up. The Cressians had arrived in system. Their ships were grouping near Earth's fleet. Ren watched the tactical display. Human ships with forbidden weapons. Cressian dreadnoughts with their own nightmares in tow. The first assault teams were already suiting up. They cut through enemy armor and deployed directly into enemy ships. No one had tried boarding actions against the hegemony before. Earth's Marines would be the first. Captain Nicole Adams's stealth squadron coasted through the debris field on minimal power. Their ships, 3 Black Star-class recon vessels, blended into the dark. Their hulls cooled to match the background radiation. The hegemony fleet filled their scopes, closer than any human ship had gotten before. Each enemy vessel was a patchwork. Horror. Hull plates didn't match. Drive signatures oscillated between 6 distinct propulsion types. Even the weapon ports varied. Energy projectors from one species bolted next to kinetic launchers from another. It wasn't a unified fleet. It was a graveyard stitched together and set loose. Signal silence, Adams said. Her crew froze every system that might leak EM. The hegemony didn't just track ships. Their sensors picked up neural activity. The lead hegemony cruiser drifted past. Its bridge was visible through ragged viewports, not a command center, but a cathedral of wires and tubes. Dozens of figures moved inside, their motions too synchronized. No arguments, no wasted movement. A single mind in many bodies. Adams zoomed. The scopes. The figures weren't wearing uniforms, they weren't even the same species. Some had too many limbs, some were missing eyes. All moved with the same terrible purpose. Life signs on the cruiser, her sensor tech reported. The readings flickered. Not the steady pulse of organic beings, but spikes and dips like something struggling beneath the surface. Then they spotted the mining station. It floated near the edge of the debris field, a Zephyrian orbital platform, halfway dismantled. Hegemony ships crawled over it, cutting into the structure with precision that suggested they knew exactly where to slice. The station's reactor was intact. So were its life support systems. Adams checked the scan logs. No distress calls from that location, no signs of combat. The Zephyrians hadn't fought here. They'd been taken. Slow approach, she ordered. Full passive scans only. Her stealth ship glided closer. The station's docking bay gaped open, revealing rows of transport pods. Not hegemony design. These were Zephyrian escape vessels, the kind used for emergency evacuations. Someone had packed them tight with supplies, then left them behind. The sensor tech inhaled sharply. Captain, the pods aren't empty. Adams adjusted the scopes. Each pod carried dozens of life signs. Zephyrians, humans, at least 3 other species she didn't recognize. None moved. All showed identical vital signs: slow respiration, depressed brain activity. Stasis, but not any kind she knew. The hegemony hadn't just captured the station. They'd prepped their prisoners for transport. Cargo manifest, Adams said. Her tech pulled it up. The Zephyrians had logged everything before the attack. Mineral yields, crew rotations, even personal messages waiting to be sent. The last entry was different. A single line, added after standard logs cut off. They're tagging them. Adams magnified the nearest pod. Tiny metallic nodules lined each prisoner's neck and wrists. Not restraints. Interfaces. They're not. Taking slaves, she realized. Her comms officer looked up. Then what? Parts. The hegemony didn't conquer. They harvested. Minds for their hive. Bodies for their ships. The station wasn't a battleground. It was a butcher's. Shop silence filled the bridge. Then the tactical officer spoke. Voice flat. Orders? Adams checked the fleet positions. 4 hegemony cruisers orbited the station. Twice that many drifted further out. No sign they'd detected her squadron. Not yet. Standard Doctrine said, to withdraw and report. Stealth missions didn't include rescue ops. Adams pulled up the Zephyrian database. Their last transmission listed over 200 personnel assigned to the station. Families, civilians. The pods held maybe half that number. The rest were already gone. Prep the insertion team, she said. Quiet. Calm. Marines in infiltration suits. No energy weapons. Her XO tensed. Captain, we can't. We're not leaving them. The squadron's Marines suited up in silence. No briefing, no pep talks, just mission parameters. Find the pod controls, wake the prisoners, get out. Weapons stayed cold. Unless absolutely necessary, a single shot would bring the entire fleet down on them. Adams watched the hegemony ships through her scopes. Their patrol patterns were precise, methodical, no wasted motion. It would take one gap, one moment when all 4 cruisers turned just wrong. There. She nodded to her pilot. Go. The Marine transport detached, riding a debris chunk toward the station. Their suits mimicked the station's alloy, their heat signatures lost in the reactor's bleed. Every hegemony ship had its back turned. The first Marine reached the airlock. His slicing tools made no sound. The door slid open. Inside, the station was dark. Emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows. Bodies lay slumped against walls. Station crew who hadn't made it to the pods. No wounds, no signs of violence. Just empty faces and the same metallic nodules on their necks. The Marines moved fast. No comms, hand signals only. They found the pod controls in the station's core. The system was locked, but the hegemony hadn't bothered changing the Zephyrian access codes. The Marines input the emergency release. Nothing happened. Beltar looked at the tactical display. The hegemony ships moved like locusts. Methodical, hunger made manifest. I'm telling you, there's nothing left to save. Sullivan turned away. He spoke to someone off-screen. Beltar heard one word. Confirm. A moment later, new data flooded the Zephyrian tactical feeds. Earth's fleet wasn't 12 hours out. It was here. The display updated. Dozens of human warships blinked into existence on the edge of the system. Not the cautious formations they'd used for decades. Not the defensive clusters designed to protect hunter patterns. Kill groups. Prime, Minister Beltar, Sullivan said calmly. I suggest you order your fleet to fall back. Beltar stared at the screen. The numbers still didn't add up. Even with Earth's ships, they were outmatched. The Luna arsenal might tip the scales, but deploying it here would mean... He understood. You can't, he said. Sullivan didn't blink. We already have. The channel fuzzed with static, not interference, something else. A vibration beneath reality itself. The first gravity disruptor activated. On the display, a hegemony cruiser twisted. Its hull didn't break. It bent, metal, stretched like taffy. Crew compartments compressed into dense knots. The ship screamed. Actual sound waves radiating through vacuum as its structure came apart at the molecular level. Then the temporal mines detonated. 3 more hegemony ships aged centuries in seconds. Hulls oxidized into brittle ruin. Reactors crumbled to dust. One vessel simply fell apart, its welding seams giving way after 500 years of theoretical decay. The Zephyrian command bunker went silent. Beltar's defense minister whispered, "They're monsters." Sullivan heard it. His face didn't change. Prime Minister? Beltar looked at his tactical display. The numbers still said they'd lose. The odds hadn't changed. The calculus had. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All Zephyrian ships, this is the Prime Minister. Fall back to Rally Point Gamma. His generals stared. No one retreated during a ground assault. It was suicide. Beltar didn't explain. He didn't have to. On the screens, new signatures appeared. Small, fast vessels streaking toward Zephyria. Prime. Boarding craft. Not for the planet. For the hegemony ships. Human Marines. The first assault team rammed a hegemony carrier. Not with weapons, with their whole ship. The impact shattered both vessels. Atmosphere boiled into space. Bodies tumbled. Among them, black armored figures moved purposefully, human shock troops cutting their way toward the enemy's core. Beltar watched the feeds. There was no strategy here, no honor, just sheer, brutal efficiency. The hegemony hesitated. Their perfect coordination faltered. Ships that had moved with flawless precision seconds ago now drifted, uncertain. The hive mind had never faced anything like this. Beltar opened a channel to his surface forces. All ground units, prepare to receive Allied troops. His generals started to object. Beltar cut them off. The feed from the spaceport updated. Human drop pods slammed into the tarmac. No warning, no landing protocols. Just impacts that cracked concrete and sent debris flying. From each pod, armored figures emerged. Not the disciplined ranks of Earth's old peacekeeping forces, but something feral. Something that moved like predators. The hegemony advance ground to a halt. Beltar looked back at Sullivan. The admiral's face was grim. "We can't hold them," Sullivan said, "not long." Beltar understood the truth. The humans had come knowing they'd lose. They'd come anyway. The galaxy called Earth's children monsters. Maybe they were. But monsters made good allies, the Prime Minister straightened. "Tell your Marines we're opening the northern tunnels." Sullivan nodded. He turned to issue orders. Beltar stopped him. "Admiral, why?" Sullivan paused. For the first time, something like pain crossed his face. Then it was gone. "Because someone has to." The channel cut. On the screens, the battle raged. Ships burned. Drop pods fell like meteors. The hegemony regrouped, their numbers still overwhelming. Beltar watched it all calmly. Humans fought differently when they knew they wouldn't survive. They got creative. A new alert flashed. The unknown ship from the Luna arsenal had entered the system. The Prime Minister smiled. No. Earth's fleets arrived at Kepler 442 in one seamless motion. No rally points, no staging maneuvers. 3 battle groups transitioned from warp directly into attack vectors, splitting apart before the last light of their jump faded. The hegemony fleet, orbiting tight around Zephyria Prime, barely had time to register the new contacts. By then, it was too late. Admiral Sullivan watched from the bridge of the Everest. His tactical display showed the opening move unfolding exactly as planned, if you could call it a plan. Predator protocol wasn't standard doctrine. It wasn't even military. The formations mimicked hunter behaviors from Earth's most efficient carnivores, pack tactics, ambush positions, routes that cut across standard naval angles. The first shots came from nowhere. A hegemony cruiser's starboard thruster array exploded without warning. The attacker wasn't a human warship, just a modified deep space miner rigged with seismic charges. It impacted at an oblique angle, shearing off vital components before spinning away in a cloud of debris. 3 more hegemony ships flashed damage warnings. None could pinpoint the source. Neurological interference at 70%, Sullivan's science officer reported. Enemy coordination patterns show significant lag. The hegemony reacted, just slowly enough to matter. Their usual hive precision stuttered. Ships hesitated before maneuvering. Weapons tracked targets a second too late. The neural scramblers weren't just working. They were eroding the enemy's greatest strength. Sullivan opened the fleet-wide channel. "All units go loud." That was when the boarding pods launched, not from the frontline ships, not even from the military vessels. Freighters and refueling tenders, and jury-rigged civilian runners spat out clouds of armored capsules. Each carried a 4 Marine strike team with one mission: get inside. The first pod slammed into a hegemony command ship's ventral plating. Its kinetic penetrators burned through 3 meters of composite armor before detonating. The breach wasn't neat. It was violent, jagged, exactly wide enough for armored figures to pour through. Lieutenant Cole's team hit the deck firing. Not energy weapons, not plasma. Kinetic rounds designed to fragment inside flesh. The first Hygamon they encountered went down screaming, its body jerking as each bullet tumbled through tissue. "They feel pain," someone said over comms. Cole didn't answer. He was too busy planting cameras. Every strike team carried them, small, rugged devices that transmitted directly back to Earth. The first images reached civilian networks 7 seconds after the initial breach, unedited, unfiltered. People watching from Earth saw Cole's helmet cam as he moved through the hegemony ship. They saw the walls, not clean bulkheads, but fused tissue and machinery. They saw the crew stations manned by half-conscious prisoners wired into control systems. They saw what harvesting really meant. Cole reached the central junction. His team planted charges around the ship's neural nexus, the core where the hive mind's local presence concentrated. Then they fell back to their extraction point. The charges detonated. On Earth's feeds, viewers watched the explosion ripple through the hegemony fleet. Not just one ship, 20. Their movements suddenly erratic, uncoordinated. The neural nexus had been a focal point. Destroying it didn't just kill a ship, it wounded the hive. Sullivan watched the tactical update. Dozens of hegemony vessels were breaking formation, reacting to threats that weren't there. His weapons officer turned. "Admiral, the Relentless is moving." Sullivan didn't need the display to confirm it. He could see the dreadnought with his own eyes, the massive ship accelerating straight toward the hegemony flagship. No evasive maneuvers, no weapons fire, just speed. "Get me Captain Varga." The channel opened to static. Then Varga's voice, calm. "Admiral." Sullivan knew what would happen next. He'd seen the projections. "Stand down, Captain, that's an order." Another burst of static. "Negative, sir. We're committed." The Relentless didn't slow. Hegemony energy weapons lanced out, carving glowing, scars across the dreadnought's hull. Damage alerts flared across Sullivan's display. The Relentless lost primary thrust, then secondary. It kept moving. Varga's last transmission came through clear. "Tell them we chose this." Outside the relay's observation window, the first human warships were already spinning up their drives. Admiral Sullivan's office was dim when the recall order came through. The only light came from the tactical display on his desk, a slowly rotating star map dotted with icons. One cluster pulsed red, Zephyrian space. He didn't need to zoom in. He knew the systems by heart. He had been a junior lieutenant during the Void Hunter crisis, 23 years ago, but he could still recite the casualty reports from memory. 12 million dead in the first week. The Crescians had closed their borders. The Vesper Concord had offered diplomatic solutions. Only the Zephyrians had come. They hadn't sent warships. They'd sent doctors. Their medical frigates had jumped into the Sol system without escort, without even notifying Earth's defense grids. The first Zephyrian envoy had stepped onto Luna Station holding a Neuralink stabilizer in both hands. "For seizures," he'd said. That device had saved 500,000 lives before Earth's engineers could reverse engineer it. Sullivan touched the old scar on his forearm. The medics had used Zephyrian tissue welders to seal the wound after a Void Hunter's spine fragment had torn through his armor. No anesthetic, no time. The welders had burned like hell, but they'd worked. His aide cleared her throat. "Sir, the Civilian Council is demanding clarification on Protocol 7. Sullivan didn't look up. "Tell them to read the archives. Section 14, Void Hunter response. Sir, they're asking why we're abandoning the civilian first doctrine. The press is already calling this an overreaction." The tactical display flickered. More hegemony signatures had appeared near Zephyria Prime. Sullivan straightened. "Pull up the casualty projections for Zephyrya's inner colonies. Full breakdown by age group. Send it to every council member, then ask them which part they'd like me to explain first." The aide hesitated. "Admiral, the last time we authorized unrestricted fleet mobilization was when the Zephyrians were patching up our children while their own ships burned." Sullivan tapped the display. The icons shifted, showing projected hegemony advance. Vectors. They didn't ask for repayment, they didn't even ask for thanks, now they're asking for help. What's the debate? The aide swallowed. The Luna Arsenal, sir. Protocol 7 hasn't been activated since we promised never to use those weapons again. Sullivan exhaled. I know. But the hegemony doesn't fight by our rules. They don't take prisoners, they take parts. If we hold back now, we won't get another chance. A chime sounded. Fleet readiness reports streamed in. 70% of Earth's combat vessels were already spinning up drives. The rest would be combat ready within 6 hours. Sullivan opened a secure channel to the lunar command bunker. The officer who answered wore a hazard suit. Behind him, rows of dormant war machines stretched into shadow. Status? The officer's voice buzzed through static. Arsenal systems are green. Storage vaults show 0 integrity breaches. We're running final diagnostics on the temporal mines now. Neural scramblers? Locked and loaded. Gravity disruptors. Need another 90 minutes for calibration. Sullivan nodded. Fast track it. I want full arsenal deployment authorization within the hour. The officer hesitated. Sir, just to confirm, we are authorizing field use of consciousness disruptors? Yes. Understood. A pause. The techs are asking about safeguards. Threshold for abort parameters? Sullivan looked at the star map, at the red icons crawling toward Zephyria's capital. There aren't any. The channel cut. On the tactical display, new green icons appeared. Human ships breaking orbit. Not the cautious patrol formations they'd used for decades. Not the defensive clusters designed to shield civilians. These were hunter-killer groupings, rapid response patterns last seen during the Void War. Earth's fleet hadn't fought an offensive action in 20 years. Their last engagement had been a humanitarian escort mission. Today, every ship carried maximum ordnance loads. Today, they'd rehearsed boarding protocols instead of evacuation drills. Sullivan's comm hissed. A familiar voice crackled through. Captain Vera of the Zephyrian Remnant Fleet. Admiral, our long-range sensors are down, but we're picking. Updrive signatures from your direction. Please confirm. Sullivan glanced at the deployment clock. 72 ships already en route. More launching by the minute. Confirming, Captain. First strike group will reach your position in 8 hours. Static. Then Vera's voice quieter. You're mobilizing your entire fleet. No. Sullivan opened a live feed from Luna's surface. Massive silo doors ground open. We're mobilizing everything. The feed showed the first gravity disruptor being loaded onto a transport. The weapon looked like a nightmare, a twisted spine of black metal covered in half-familiar runes. Vera inhaled sharply. You kept them. Sullivan didn't answer. On the tactical display, 3 hegemony ships vanished. Not destroyed, not retreating, just gone. The Zephyrian's voice turned, grim. They'll call you monsters? Sullivan watched another disruptor emerge from its vault. Good. A new alert flashed. The Cressians had responded to Article 14. Their message was 3 words. Stand by for rendezvous. The aide stared. They're actually coming? Not for us. Sullivan shut off the display. For the Zephyrians, turns out even the Cressians have debts to pay. Across the system, human ships switched to combat thrust. No more cautious approaches. No more defensive posturing. The monsters of Earth were coming, and this time, they wouldn't stop at the border. Beneath the moon's surface, the steel vaults began to hum. Automated systems that hadn't powered up in 20 years flickered to life one by one. The first activation sequence came from the central bunker. Protocol 7. Authorization Sullivan Row. The lights in the facility turned red, then black, then an unsettling violet. Lieutenant Wren checked the manifest. 312 weapons caches were spread across 7 levels, each containing devices Earth had sworn never to use again. The air smelled of old lubricant and something sharper. Ozone from long-dormant reactors fighting to stabilize. Confirm vault integrity, Wren said. His voice echoed between the armored walls. A technician scanned the nearest locker. The readout flashed green. Seals held. Environmental controls report 0 degradation. That was impossible. Nothing lasted 20 years in perfect condition. Yet the scanner didn't lie. The first bunker's contents were pristine. Wren approached the primary storage unit. His breath fogged in the sudden cold. The locking mechanism recognized his ident chip and unfolded like a flower made of knives. Inside lay 6 gravity disruptors, sleek, tapered rods threaded with neural filaments. They looked almost beautiful until you knew what they did. "Verify the safety interlocks," Wren ordered. The technician hesitated. "Sir, Protocol 7 disables all failsafes." "I know. Do it anyway." The disruptors passed inspection. So did the temporal. Mines. Disc-shaped devices barely larger than a human hand. Each one contained enough compressed chronoton energy to age a dreadnought into scrap metal. One Marine checked the diagnostic. His hands froze. Damage indicators lit up across the board. The hegemony hadn't just locked the pods. They'd rewired them. Each one was now a closed life support loop. Air recyclers active, nutrient feeds engaged. The prisoners weren't in stasis. They were being prepped. The Marine leader checked his scanner. More hegemony ships were approaching. They had minutes at most. He gestured to his team. Manual release. They pried open the nearest pod. The seals broke with a hiss. Inside, a Zephyrian child lay curled between 2 adults. Parents, probably. Their chests rose and fell in perfect sync. The Marine touched the child's neck. The nodule there pulsed. He pulled his hand back. His scanner showed the truth. The nodules weren't just interfaces. They were injecting something. Rewriting neural patterns. Turning prisoners into spare parts. His team exchanged glances. They couldn't carry them all. He made the call. Priority to the ones still untouched. The Marines worked fast, choosing at a glance. 3 Zephyrians awake and moving. 5 humans. 1 Cressian medic. They left the rest in their pods, tagging each with a tracker. Maybe someone could come back for them. The first hegemony patrol entered the station. Adams saw it on her scope. Extraction now. The Marines hauled their charges toward the airlock. No shots, no alerts. Just quiet, desperate motion. Then the Cressian medic woke screaming. The sound cut off fast. Someone clamped a hand over his mouth. But it was enough. Hegemony units turned in unison. Their weapons came up. Adams watched through the Marine cams. She saw the nodule on the Cressian's neck flare bright. "Get them out," she ordered. The Marines ran. The hegemony didn't chase. They just watched. Weapons ready but not firing. Almost like they were waiting. The last Marine reached the airlock. Then he stopped. A child stood in the hallway. Alone. Unharmed. No nodule. Human. The Marine hesitated. Then he scooped her up. Hegemony unit stepped aside as he passed. Not retreating. Not surrendering. Just clearing a path. The Marines hit. Vacuum. Their thrusters kicked in. The hegemony ships made no move to intercept. Adams's squadron recovered them in silence. Only when they were safely aboard did she check the girl. No wounds. No implants. Nothing to explain why the hegemony let her go. The Marine who carried her was sweating. "They wanted us to take her." Adams looked back at the station. The hegemony. Ships were moving again. Not attacking, just resuming their work. Pod after pod filled with living cargo. She opened a channel to Earth. 1 burst transmission before her stealth systems re-engaged. 8 words. "They're farming us. We go in quiet." Prime Minister Beltar watched the tactical display with dry eyes. He hadn't slept in 48 hours. Neither had anyone else in the command bunker. The air smelled of stale rations and sweat. Every screen showed the same thing. Zephyria, Prime's defensive grid collapsing sector by sector. The hegemony fleet had breached the outer orbitals 6 hours ago. Beltar's generals had assured him the inner ring would hold for days. They'd been wrong. The enemy used tactics no one had predicted. They didn't just attack weak points. They sacrificed ships to create new ones. A blast shook the bunker. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Beltar didn't flinch. He'd stopped counting the near misses hours ago. "Eastern Shield Cluster is down," his defense minister said. The man's voice was calm. Too calm. That leaves Sector 7 unprotected. Sector 7 held 2 million civilians. Evacuation. Ships had been loading there when the hegemony broke through. Beltar pulled up the feeds. The spaceport swarmed with people. No panic, just quiet, desperate order. Parents carried children. Elders moved slowly but kept moving. The first hegemony descent ships entered the atmosphere. Beltar opened a channel to the remnants of the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Vera answered immediately. Her bridge was dark, lit only by emergency strips. Behind her, crew worked silently at damaged consoles. "Status?" Beltar asked. Vera didn't sugarcoat it. "We can't stop them. Best we can do is buy time." On the display, Zephyrian warships formed a ragged line between the planet and the enemy. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. Every ship had taken damage. Some trailed atmosphere. One cruiser's main drive flickered erratically. It wouldn't last another engagement, yet they held position. Vera followed his gaze. "They're waiting for you to give the order." Beltar knew what she meant. The final option. Scorch protocols. Destroy the planet rather than let it be harvested. The hegemony didn't just conquer worlds, they consumed them, body and mind. "The humans?" he asked. Vera checked her console. Last report put them 12 hours out. Too late, even if they came at full burn. Another explosion rattled the bunker. Closer this time. Beltar's aide flinched. The Prime Minister didn't. He'd made his decision weeks ago when the first reports came in from the frontier. He just hadn't admitted it until now. "Open a channel to Earth," he said. The comm officer hesitated. "Prime Minister, our long-range transmitters. Use the relay network. Route it through the old medical bands." A moment later, the link established. Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on screen. Earth's command center bustled behind him, officers moving quickly but without panic. Beltar noted the difference. His own people were beyond panic. They'd reached resignation. Sullivan took in Beltar's face. The Admiral didn't ask for a sitrep. He knew. "We're coming," Sullivan said. Beltar shook his head. "You won't make it." The Admiral didn't argue. He turned to someone off-screen, spoke too quietly for the mics to catch. Then he faced Beltar again. "The Crescians jumped ahead of us. Their advance group should reach you in..." "They won't engage." Beltar cut him off. "Not for us." Silence. The two men looked at each other across 12 light-years of space. Sullivan exhaled. "There's another option." Beltar already knew. Earth's Luna arsenal. The weapons they'd sworn never to use again. "Too late for that," he said. Another explosion. Closer. The lights flickered. When they came back, half the displays were dark. Beltar straightened. He'd always been a practical man. Zephyria's first prime minister from the science caste. He believed in data, not destiny. The numbers were clear. They'd lost, but data didn't account for everything. "Admiral," he said quietly, "do you remember the Void Hunter crisis?" Sullivan's expression didn't change, but his eyes darkened. "I do. Your people were dying. We helped." Earth's Admiral nodded, no hesitation. "We remember." More explosions. The bunker trembled. Beltar's aide grabbed his arm. "Prime Minister, we have to..." Beltar shook him off. He kept his eyes on Sullivan. "You once asked why we came," he said, "when no one else would." Sullivan waited. "Reciprocity wasn't the reason," Beltar continued. "We didn't expect repayment." The Admiral understood. "You're asking me to stand down." The impact wasn't clean. The Relentless struck the hegemony flagship at an angle, its forward section crumpling like paper. Atmosphere vented in great plumes, debris spun away. For a moment, both ships hung linked in space, mortally wounded. Then, the Relentless's core detonated. The blast wave rippled through the hegemony formation. Ships caught in the periphery staggered, their hulls pelted with shrapnel. The flagship itself broke apart, massive sections tearing away as secondary explosions raced through its structure. On Earth, viewers watched in silence. This wasn't the sanitized combat of historical Sims. This was raw, brutal, intentional sacrifice. Sullivan's comm officer turned. Admiral, we're receiving signals from the wreckage. Life signs. Dozens. Not hegemony. Prisoners. Somehow, part of the flagship's interior had remained intact. Scans showed survivors moving, injured but alive. Many were species Earth had never encountered. None matched hegemony physiology. Sullivan issued new orders. All med teams prep for rescue ops. Combat units cover them. The battle wasn't over. The hegemony still outnumbered them, but something had changed. The enemy's coordination was slipping further. Gaps appeared in their formations. Ships that should have covered each other drifted apart. The neural disruptors were doing more than interfering. They were making the hive mind hesitate. Marine teams reported boarding more enemy vessels. Each time they found the same horror. Prisoners wired into systems, living components in a vast machine. Each time they transmitted the footage back. Earth saw every second. A new alert flashed. The unknown ship from Luna had arrived. It didn't appear on scanners. Crews only noticed it when a hegemony cruiser abruptly veered off course, engines flaring. Then another. And another. Something was hunting them. Sullivan watched as 3 more hegemony ships broke formation without explanation. The unknown vessel's signature was impossible to lock down. Just brief sensor ghosts and the aftermath of its passing. His science officer frowned at the readings. It's not attacking, it's hurting them. Sullivan understood. The Hunter protocols weren't just about killing. They were about fear, about showing the hive mind something it couldn't predict. The remaining hegemony ships began to withdraw, not in formation, not with purpose, individually. Something had broken. Earth's fighters harried them all the way to warp. No mercy, no prisoners taken. The hegemony left behind crippled ships and clouds of debris, and survivors. Hundreds. Thousands. Sullivan stood at the viewing port as the first rescue shuttles launched. The scale of what they'd found aboard those ships, what the hegemony had been doing, was only starting to become clear. The Cressians arrived then. Late. Their dreadnoughts glided into the system to find the battle already over. Their admiral hailed Sullivan directly. You used the arsenal. Sullivan didn't deny it. We did. The Cressian didn't ask why. He'd seen the broadcasts too. Instead, he said what no Cressian officer had ever said to a human commander before. We will assist with the wounded. On the planet, below Zephyrian ground forces emerged from their tunnels. Human med teams met them, already unloading supplies from drop pods. No one celebrated. There was too much work to do. The galaxy would call this victory. Sullivan knew better. They'd answered the call, knowing the cost. The gravity disruptors went active first. They didn't announce themselves with bright flashes or thunderous detonations. A single cruiser near the Zephyrian vanguard simply bent. Metal warped along invisible contours, the hull twisting like taffy pulled in opposing directions. The crew compartments compressed into dense knots. Humanoid figures frozen in postures of futile resistance before their bodies collapsed inward. The ship didn't explode. It crumpled, its structural integrity erased by forces that laughed at conventional physics. Temporal mines came next. They drifted through the hegemony ranks like ordinary debris before detonating in pulses of blue-white light. Where each pulse touched, time accelerated. Hull plating aged centuries and seconds, rust blossoming across surfaces before the metal crumbled into dust. Reactors froze solid, their plasma conduits crystallizing like aged glass. One warship simply came apart, its welds failing after imaginary centuries of stress. The crew didn't even have time to scream. Commander Patel watched the sensor feeds from her station aboard the Everest. The hegemony fleet had been a perfectly coordinated organism seconds earlier. Now it convulsed. Ships that had moved with mathematical precision collided in panicked evasive maneuvers. Neural interference at 80%, her tactical officer reported. Patel nodded. The scramblers were broadcasting directly into enemy sensor arrays. Every hegemony ship sailing into the affected zone started receiving signals that shouldn't exist. phantom attack signatures, false distress calls. Worse, the exact frequencies varied by target. Technical crews got screaming voices in their comms. Navigators saw collision alerts where emptiness actually yawned. The hive mind had never needed safeguards against hallucinations. A hegemony destroyer spun wildly, firing its pulse cannons at empty space. The beams tore through two of its own escorts before the gunners realized their mistake. The destroyer went silent, drifting like a stunned animal. The disruption spread faster than the human fleet could capitalize on it. Entire wings of the enemy formation broke apart. Some ships fled outright. Others attempted desperate countermeasures, shutting down their sensors, severing neural links to the greater fleet. The hive had become a liability. Patel's comm officer looked up. Boarding teams reporting resistance collapse on 3 carriers. Enemy crew manifesting catatonic states. The scramblers didn't just transmit noise. They resonated with the hegemony augmentation nodules, overloading the organic circuitry that connected each being to the collective. Some victims froze. Some tore at their own implants. One boarding team found a hegemon officer methodically dismantling its command console with bare hands, oblivious to the gunfire around it. Earth's Marines pressed forward between pockets of chaos. They fought differently now. No more cautious advances. No concern for collateral damage. The footage reaching Earth showed close-quarters engagements where human soldiers leveraged every scrap of environmental advantage, venting compartments to suck enemies into vacuum, rigging power conduits to explode when hegemony reinforcements arrived. A new signal flickered on the edge of Patel's scope. The unknown ship from Luna had entered the engagement zone at last. It didn't register on standard scans, just a ghostly absence where hegemony targeting systems tried and failed to achieve lock. The first hint of its presence came when an enemy battleship abruptly changed course, its drive signatures spiking in panic. Then another and another. "What's it doing?" Patel's XO asked. "Hunting," Patel said. The thing from Luna moved like nothing in conventional physics allowed. It didn't attack. It appeared, just for an instant, near key vessels, long enough for their crews to sense something wrong, before it vanished again. Hegemony communications logs later revealed the same phrase repeating across dozens of ships. "It's inside the walls." The battleship that had first flinched began firing wildly, its weapons discharging at random vectors. The other vessels near it scattered. Coordination collapsed. Patel opened a channel to Admiral Sullivan. "Sir, they're breaking." The main display confirmed it. Whole sections of the hegemony fleet were disengaging, not in orderly retreat, but frantic rout. Ships collided in their haste to escape. Some activated warp drives dangerously close to allies, the resulting gravitational shearing tearing both vessels apart. Earth's fighters harried them anyway, not for kills, for the message. Every hegemony vessel limping away carried scars. Every survivor would remember. Sullivan's voice crackled across the fleet-wide channel. "All units, focus on rescue operations. Disable remaining hostiles, but prioritize recovering prisoners. Losses mounted on both sides." The Relentless's sacrifice had taken out the enemy flagship, but 3 more human ships followed it into void, their crews buying time for evacuation shuttles to reach the wreckage. The Zephyrian remnants suffered worst of all. Admiral Vera's command cruiser finally succumbed to its earlier damage, breaking apart as its last functional battery took out a pursuing hegemony frigate. Yet the tide had turned. The surviving hegemony ships now fought for escape, not victory. Earth's Marines reported finding entire enemy crews slumped at their stations, their neural links severed. The hive mind had withdrawn from the field, abandoning its components to individual fates. Patel checked the casualty projections. Even with their disrupted coordination, the hegemony had inflicted brutal losses. Human forces would need days to recover all the prisoners scattered across disabled wrecks. Many wouldn't survive extraction. New alert drew her attention. The mystery ship had reappeared near the battle's edge. This time it lingered just long enough for scanners to catch a blurry silhouette. Something sleek and needle-thin, its hull absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Then it slid back into obscurity. "Did we her sensor tech began. No, Patel cut in. We didn't. On the planet below, Zephyrian survivors emerged from their bunkers to find human medics already setting up aid stations amidst the ruins. Some Zephyrians flinched at first contact. The things Earth had unleashed, in their defense, defied comprehension. At one ruined spaceport, a human marine knelt to offer water to a Zephyrian child. The girl hesitated before accepting, her eyes wide with something between gratitude and fear. The marine's helmet cam caught the moment. It played endlessly across Earth's networks later, not as propaganda, but as cold fact. The marine didn't offer reassuring words. She didn't lie about what had been done to secure this victory. When the child finally whispered a question, "Why did you come?" the answer was simple: because someone had to. Aboard the Everest, Patel reviewed the final readiness reports. The surviving hegemony ships had withdrawn beyond sensor range. Earth's fleet stood battered but victorious across 2 star systems. The cost appeared on every screen: burned hulls, body counts, the thousands still missing, yet one number mattered most. Confirmed prisoner recovery at 12,000 and climbing, her ops officer reported. 37 species so far, some we've never even seen before. Patel watched the feeds from medical bays across the fleet. The survivors bore the marks of long captivity: neural implants, surgical scars. Worse, many didn't react when spoken to. Some would never recover. Her comm buzzed with an incoming message, personal frequency, the audio only. "Tell my parents I chose to be the monster they needed." The voice belonged to Lieutenant Cole. He'd led the first successful boarding action against a hegemony command ship. His squad hadn't made it back. Patel saved the recording. She'd deliver it personally. Cole's parents deserved to know their son hadn't died screaming. He'd died smiling. Lieutenant Miller's hands shook on the controls as the consciousness disruptor shuttle dove toward the hegemony command ship. The weapon strapped to his craft's belly wasn't just classified. It had been erased from official records after the series incident. Its activation codes came directly from Admiral Sullivan, bypassing 7 layers of oversight. The target ship loomed ahead, its patchwork hull stretching kilometers in every direction. Scans showed no weapons emplacements, no shield generators. The vessel relied entirely on escort ships for protection, an arrogance that would cost them. Miller's sensors picked up structural oddities, entire sections with no atmosphere readings, others pulsing with abnormal energy signatures. His comm crackled. Phase 1 complete, all escorts neutralized. Miller didn't answer. His focus remained on the approach vector. The disruptor had to impact within 15 meters of the central nexus to achieve maximum effect. Miss by even a few meters, and the blast radius might not reach the core. The shuttle's proximity alarm screamed. The command ship's point defense systems had finally woken up. Energy bolts tore through space around him. Miller juked hard, his inertial dampeners groaning in protest. A near miss sheared off his starboard stabilizer, 200 meters to impact. His targeting computer locked on. The disruptor's arming sequence initiated with a low hum that vibrated through his bones. 50 meters. The command ship's hull filled his view, a nightmare collage of scavenged plating and organic growths. Impact. The shuttle crumpled against the hull, its nose section flattening like paper. Emergency systems ejected Miller clear milliseconds before the disruptor activated. The initial pulse was invisible. No flash, no explosion. Just a shudder that rippled through the command ship's structure, making its vast bulk tremble like a living thing in pain. Then the screaming started, not through comms, not through any conventional channel. It flooded every receiver in the battle zone simultaneously, thousands of voices shrieking in perfect unison before dissolving into static. Ships throughout the hegemony formation suddenly veered off course, their movements becoming erratic. Miller's escape pod tumbled away from the command ship. Through its small viewport, he watched the vessel's running lights flicker and die. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the truth became visible. The command ship wasn't a warship at all. As sections of outer plating buckled inward, the interior structure became visible. Row upon row of cylindrical pods stretched into the distance, each containing a living being suspended in viscous fluid. Neural tendrils linked them together, forming a biological network that undoubtedly powered the hegemony's hive coordination. Miller's breath caught. He'd seen intelligence briefings about hegemony harvesting operations. None had suggested this scale. The command ship held millions. His pod scanner automatically began cataloging life signs. Over 4 million biological signatures from 37 distinct species. Some matched known civilizations conquered by the hegemony. Others were completely unknown to Earth databases. All were still alive. The scanner flagged something worse. As the disruptor's effects propagated through the neural network, individual pods were shutting down, not failing, purposefully deprioritized by whatever remained of the hive intelligence as it struggled to survive the assault. Entire sections went dark every second, their occupants silently asphyxiating as life support cut off. Miller grabbed his comm. Priority override. All ships. Immediate rescue operations required on the command vessel. Repeat, there are. His transmission cut off as another tremor shook the dying ship. The neural network was collapsing, and with it, the hegemony's coordination across the entire battlefield. Enemy ships flailed, some retreating, others attacking blindly, a few simply drifting with all systems dead. From Miller's vantage point, the scale of horror became clear. The command ship formed just one node in what must have been an unimaginably vast harvesting operation. Each hegemony fleet likely had similar vessels at its core, floating concentration camps fueling their military might. Emergency channels erupted with voices as Earth forces reacted, medical teams standing by. We need zero-G trauma units. Sir, the containment protocols. Admiral Sullivan's voice cut through the chaos. All units, disregard quarantine procedures. Rescue operations authorized at all cost. The order broke half a dozen interstellar treaties in one sentence. Any species recovered from that ship could carry dormant hegemony implants, rogue nanotech, or worse. Standard protocols demanded isolation first, questions later. None of that mattered now. The first rescue shuttles reached the dying command ship within minutes. Boarding teams cut through buckling bulkheads, their plasma torches casting hellish shadows across endless rows of pods. Medical personnel followed, working desperately to extract survivors before entire sections depressurized. Miller watched through his drifting pod's camera feed. The rescuers moved with frantic precision, prioritizing pods that still showed brain activity. Some contained recognizable species, Zephyrians, Crescians, even a handful of humans. Others held beings unlike anything in Earth's databases, crystalline life forms, gelatinous masses, one chamber filled with what appeared to be floating clusters of glowing gas. All had been connected. All had been used. A medical team reached a cluster of Zephyrian pods. Their occupants awoke screaming, neural interfaces tearing free from skull implants. One medic held a child-sized Zephyrian as it convulsed, whispering reassurances in broken trade dialect. The camera feed flickered. Miller's pod was losing power. His last view showed a boarding team breaching the command ship's central nexus and freezing at what they found. The core wasn't a machine. It was a being. A massive, pulsing neural mass floated at the ship's heart, tendrils extending in all directions. Whether it was the original hegemony mastermind or some later evolution was impossible to say. As the humans watched, it began crumbling, inward, its connections withering under the disruptor's continuing effects. Final scanner readings suggested it had been broadcasting the entire time, not just to nearby ships, but across interstellar distances. A final signal, containing what, no one could say. As Miller's pod went dark, the last thing he heard was the Admiral's voice on comms. All vessels, prepare for long-range scans. Assume nothing about what's left. The battle had been won. The true war was just beginning. They chose to be what the universe needed, not what it wanted. The first memorial service happened before the war was officially over. 89 Zephyrian children stood at attention in Geneva's Peace Plaza, each holding a single white flower. They represented the 89 human boarding teams who hadn't returned from the command ships. The oldest child was 12. The youngest, 6. They placed their flowers on the marble steps exactly where Earth's first interstellar treaty had been signed. No speeches were given. None were needed. Monster's Den rose from the ruins of the battlefield. Earth's engineers salvaged what they could: hegemony neural relays, Cressian defensive arrays, even fragments of the mysterious Luna artifact that had hunted enemy ships. The station didn't resemble any human design. Its core structure pulsed with hybrid technologies, some barely understood. Observation decks extended like thorns from a central spine. Gravity fields twisted in ways that made visiting physicists shudder. Admiral Sullivan watched the first tests from his new office aboard the station. A single temporal mine detonated in the designated zone. Space folded. Time stuttered. The target asteroid aged 4,000 years in 6 seconds, its surface crumbling to regolith before their eyes. His aide stood frozen at the window. "We rebuilt them. Better," Sullivan corrected. He pulled up schematics showing the new containment fields. "Now we can turn them off." Word spread faster than diplomacy could manage. The Vesper Concord sent observers before sending ambassadors. The Cressians dispatched a full science delegation alongside their rebuilt dreadnought fleet. Even the reclusive HFY Collective broke 70 years of silence to request docking privileges. They all came for the same reason: to see the monsters who had broken the unbreakable. The Zephyrians arrived last. Prime Minister Beltar stepped onto Monsters' Den's main concourse with no escort. His body showed the marks of recent surgery, a bad stabbing from a hegemony neural spike during the final hours on his planet. He walked stiffly, but refused assistance. Sullivan met him at the observation deck. Below them, space stretched black and silent. No debris. No wreckage. The cleanup crews had worked fast. Beltar studied the view for a long moment. Then he said, "They're calling it the Kepler miracle. A poor name. No miracles here. Just choices." Sullivan handed him a datapad. "Prisoner repatriation status. We've returned 62% of identified individuals to their home systems. Another 23% elected to stay in Allied territories. And the rest? Still recovering. Some may never be fit for transport." The pad listed names, species, medical conditions. Beltar paused on one entry. A Zephyrian female, age approximately 90, neural integration at 71%. Formerly, a navigation node on the second command ship they'd broken open. "She was on the border patrol," Beltar murmured. "Lost 20 years ago." His fingers tightened on the pad. "Her family had a funeral." Sullivan said nothing. The reports from the med bay said it all. Some of the recovered prisoners remembered fragments of their old lives. Most recalled nothing but the hive. Beltar set the pad down. "Your people have done the impossible." A warning light flashed on Sullivan's console. The 5th containment breach this week. Another recovered prisoner reacting violently to standard decon procedures. The station's med teams were learning as they went. "No," Sullivan said. "We did what was necessary." Across the galaxy, governments recalibrated. The Vesper Concord openly debated dissolving their non-intervention accords. Cressian warlords who'd mocked Earth's soft defenses now emulated human neural disruption tech. By month's end, 17 species had requested mutual defense pacts, not with Earth. With Monsters' Den. Sullivan toured the station's lower decks weekly. The recovered prisoners occupied a special wing, high ceilings, soft light, rooms designed to minimize sensory triggers. Medical staff wore muted uniforms, no sudden movements allowed. Dr. Petrov met him at the central monitoring hub. Her white coat showed coffee stains down the front. She hadn't slept in days. "Progress?" Sullivan asked. She pulled up brain scans. "We've isolated 19 distinct neural integration patterns. Each requires a different separation protocol." Her finger tapped one especially complex readout. "This group? Their motor functions are still partially hive-linked. They report feeling ghost limbs, sensations from prisoners still trapped in other systems." Sullivan studied the scan. The activity spikes matched no known neural map. Any way to trace the connections? Petrov's smile didn't reach her eyes. We're working with hegemony tech now. Tracing isn't the problem. She lowered her voice. Some of these links go interstellar, light years distant. A new discovery. One they hadn't shared with the other governments. The hive mind hadn't been destroyed, just severed. Its pieces still existed across the galaxy, dormant but intact. Sullivan made his decision before reaching the elevator. Triple security on all neural research. No data leaves this floor. Petrov nodded. She already had the forms ready. On Geneva's rebuilt streets, visitors from a dozen worlds walked the memorial circuit. Plaques marked key moments from the battle. Lieutenant Cole's boarding action, the relentless sacrifice, the final prisoner count. Children left flowers by each one. No one touched the empty space at the circuit's end. The final plaque wouldn't be installed for months yet. Its inscription was still being debated. We chose to remember, so that others may forget. Earth's parliament argued over the wording daily. Some wanted something triumphant. Others preferred stark simplicity. The Zephyrian delegation had suggested adding the names of every recovered prisoner, but there were too many. The list grew longer each week as identification teams worked through the remains of other command ships. Back on Monster's Den, Sullivan reviewed the latest strategic reports. The hegemony remnants had withdrawn beyond current scouting range, but no one believed they were gone for good. The recovered prisoner's testimony painted a picture of an empire spanning hundreds of systems. This battle had cost them a fleet, not the war. His aide delivered the daily update. Cressian liaisons are requesting access to the temporal weapon. Archives, denied. Vesper Concord offers trade incentives for neural disruption schematics. Denied. A pause. Then the aide said, The HFY Collective has a different proposal. They wish to station observers aboard Monster's Den indefinitely. Interesting. The HFY had always valued solitude above all. Their enclaves typically severed contact for generations at a time. Sullivan pulled up their file. During the battle's worst hours, long-range scans had picked up unidentified signatures skirting the conflict zone, never engaging, never communicating. Just watching. Terms? The aide checked his pad. No conditions, no reciprocation requested. Silent witnesses to humanity's moment of truth. Now they wanted front-row seats to whatever came next. Approve it, Sullivan said. He walked to the observation deck again. The stars turned beyond the armored glass. Somewhere out there, the thing from Luna still prowled the dark. Fleet scanners caught glimpses, a distorted blip near abandoned battle sites, anomalous energy readings where no ships should be. It always vanished before probes could intercept. The comm panel beeped. A priority channel opened automatically. Repeat. This is Relay Station Theta requesting immediate assistance. Multiple hegemony signatures detected at. The signal dissolved into static. Sullivan's console lit up with confirmations. 3. More relay stations had gone dark in the past hour. Same sector, same transmission patterns. Not a raid. A probing attack. Across the station, alert sirens began their low, mournful wail. Sullivan watched as Monster's Den's defense grids activated, layer after layer of hybrid technologies spinning up. Human, Cressian, Zephyrian, hegemony, all working in concert now. His comm crackled with incoming confirmations. The Vesper conquered, dispatched ships. The Cressians scrambled fighters. Even the HFY observers roused from their silent vigils and moved toward the docking bays. They all knew what came next. The galaxy had learned two truths at Kepler 442. First, that the universe contained horrors beyond comprehension. Second, that humanity would look those horrors in the eye and advance. Sullivan opened the fleet-wide channel. His voice carried across 100 bridges, 1,000 ready stations. All units, prepare to jump. The universe's most dangerous predator can also be the most steadfast ally. The galaxy remembers Kepler 442, not as a battle but a turning point. Monsters' Den orbits in silent vigilance now, half station, half sentinel. Its hybrid technologies pulse with quiet purpose. The recovered prisoners walk its halls, their neural scars fading day by day. Earth's children no longer flinch when called monsters. They've learned what the universe demands of its protectors. The memorial in Geneva grows each year, new names added as more command ship survivors are identified. The hegemony will return. The stars whisper this truth, but Monsters' Den listens too. Its weapons hum in the dark, waiting. Humanity remembers its promises.